It was a normal morning. Two people sitting in an office in Herzliya Pituach, Israel. They're sipping coffee, pretending to work, probably dragging through emails they don't care about, when suddenly their computer pings. An instant message, nothing unusual. Except this one wasn't a friendly hi from a coworker. It wasn't even a bot trying to sell them shady pharmaceuticals. No, this message came in English, anonymous, hostile, and chilling. 2 hours before the world changed forever on September 11th, 2001, an instant message popped up on the screens of Audigo employees. Audigo, for those too young to remember, was basically like an ancient ancestor of WhatsApp, but uglier and less fun. And this random message claimed that a terrorist attack was imminent. No location, no time, just the kind of vague doomsday statement you'd expect from someone with a tinfoil hat and too much free time. Oh, and it ended with an anti-Semitic slur, because why not sprinkle in some hatred with your apocalyptic prophecy? Now here's where it gets weird. The employees didn't exactly leap into action. They didn't call the police. They didn't call the FBI. They didn't even call their boss. Instead, they did what most of us would probably do if we got some strange anonymous threat. We ignored it and went back to scrolling or working or pretending to be productive. It was only after the plane struck the World Trade Center that they went, "Wait a second, that creepy message. Maybe that meant something." So the company traced the IP address, passed the details to the FBI. And what happened? Well, nothing concrete. Because the Audigo platform had this neat little feature, anonymous chatting, which means the person behind the warning could have been anyone, anywhere, and left no clear trail. At first, this just sounded like a strange coincidence. But of course, in the world of human imagination, coincidence is never allowed to just be coincidence. Enter conspiracy theories. Suddenly the story twisted into tales of mass warnings. Some people claimed not just 2 employees, but thousands of Israelis were tipped off to stay home from the Twin Towers. The number 4000 began popping up like it had been tattooed on the internet's forehead. Supposedly, 4,000 Israelis had been told not to go to work at the World Trade Center, which, if true, would mean either the most organized group chat in history or some seriously sloppy secret keeping. But here's the kicker. That 4,000 number, it wasn't about warnings. It came from a completely different report. The Israeli Foreign Ministry was trying to figure out how many of its citizens were near the WTC or the Pentagon that day. They came up with about 4,000 names, not people hiding at home with secret knowledge. Just a list for the purpose of checking on their nationals in the aftermath of the attacks. Yet somehow, in the swamp of speculation, 4,000 people were near the towers, morphed into 4,000 people were warned to stay away. And that's how a tragic statistic got recycled into a conspiracy theory that refuses to die. It's almost poetic, really. Take a mundane fact, stir in fear and paranoia, and suddenly you've got a viral legend, like turning leftover soup into gourmet cuisine, except this meal is pure nonsense. But here's what really stings. When investigators looked into it, they found no factual basis for any warnings to Jewish individuals, Israelis, or anyone at all. About 270 to 400 Jewish victims actually died in the attacks, a proportion completely in line with the Jewish population in New York City. No missing patterns, no mysterious absence, just the cold math of tragedy. Still, people cling to the Audigo story because it leaves an unsettling aftertaste. Because yes, the message was real. Yes, it came before the attacks. And yes, the sender has never been identified. That part is undeniable. And when something that bizarre happens, humans can't just shrug and say, Weird coincidence, huh? No, we demand explanation, and when none comes, we invent one. And isn't that the theme of so many disturbing mysteries? One small loose thread, and suddenly you've unraveled the entire fabric of trust in the world. Think about it. This wasn't some random guy scribbling "the end is near" on a bathroom wall. This was a digital message sent hours before the worst terrorist attack in modern history. Even if vague, even if sloppy, it landed with the weight of horror after the fact. And the person who typed it? Still a ghost in the system. Was it a sick joke? A deranged individual playing Oracle for attention? Or was it someone who knew something but didn't want to, or couldn't, say it out loud? That silence is what haunts people more than anything. Now imagine being one of those employees. You're sitting there, rereading the message after the towers collapse, thinking, what if I had reported it earlier? Could lives have been saved? Or was the message too vague to matter? That kind of guilt sticks like glue. And here's where the mind begins to spiral. If one anonymous stranger knew something, how many others might have known? Was this just one leak in a sea of hidden warnings? Or was it nothing more than a grotesque coincidence amplified by tragedy? The 9/11 Commission had no patience for speculation. They combed through, investigated, and concluded there was no evidence of advance warnings to any specific group. Case closed. Except for one small detail, they never found the person who sent that Audigo message. So technically, it's not fully closed. More like slammed shut with duct tape, but you can still see the crack underneath. And that's exactly how disturbing mysteries work. They never give you a clean finish. They leave just enough dangling threads for the imagination to run wild. Now let's zoom out. The Audigo story isn't alone in this eerie category. It sits in a family of mysteries where strange coincidences blur into the uncanny. Messages, warnings, strange premonitions, all hovering like ghosts around tragic events. And every time we're left asking, coincidence or conspiracy? Random chance or hidden hand? That morning in Israel, a digital ping set off a chain reaction that still echoes decades later. Not because it solved anything, but because it left us staring into the abyss of uncertainty. The truth may be boring, the message may have been nonsense, but the timing was too cruel to ignore. And here's the most disturbing part. Somewhere out there, someone knows why that message was sent. And they've stayed silent all these years. So was it coincidence? Or was it a glimpse into something darker, a truth buried so deep it's safer to label it coincidence than to dig further? That's the discomfort. That's why people keep retelling the story. Because in a world where everything should make sense, sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't, our brains start filling the gaps with shadows. The Audigo warning remains one of those shadows. A digital whisper before disaster. Too vague to act on. Too specific to forget. A mystery that doesn't resolve, just lingers. And that in the end is why it's disturbing. Not because it proves a conspiracy. Not because it changes the facts of 9/11. But because it reminds us how fragile certainty really is. One anonymous message, 2 employees, thousands of deaths, and no answers. And here's where it twists deeper into the abyss. Imagine a faceless sender somewhere on the other side of the world typing that warning with cold fingers, hitting send, and then vanishing into digital smoke. Who does that? A prankster, a prophet, or someone who knew far too much but chose to scatter breadcrumbs instead of lighting the path? The unsettling part is how the message hovers between nonsense and revelation. Too vague to save anyone, too precise in timing to ignore. It's like a riddle written in static, one you can't solve, but also can't dismiss. Mysteries like this don't close. They metastasize. They breed whispers in dark corners, theories that feed on the gaps. The FBI files it away. The commission declares it meaningless. But in the shadows, the question festers. How did that anonymous voice know? And maybe that's the most disturbing truth. Not that the world hides answers, but that sometimes the answers exist, just outside our grasp, like a shadow on the wall with no body to cast it, reminding us that certainty is a luxury we may never afford. The Audigo warning wasn't just a message, it was a ghost, and ghosts never leave quietly.